Hello everyone and welcome to Game 3, round 3 of the 2019 Isle of Man Grand Swiss tournament. It's world champion Magnus Carlsen against former world champion Rustam Kasimdzhanov, also a long-time second to Vishwanathan Anand, second to Sergei Karakin, and a trainer, and also second to Fabiano Caruana. Definitely a strong player, and it's a very interesting game that really shows how complicated the game of chess can be. But before we dive into it, I would just like to have a short shout out at Chilean performer and singer Huga, who made a new song about chess. It's called Tactical. There you have it in the info corner. The link to the video and the song will be the first thing you will see in the description below. Here is a screenshot of one of the scenes in her video. It's black and white, of course, depicting the chessboard, and the game is about a very famous chess player who really liked to sacrifice pieces. I'm sure you all know who we're talking about. There will also be a giveaway in the video regarding this player, and well, you will learn more about it, I believe, tomorrow, so I'm not gonna share any more information about it, but do check it out. I'm very interested to see what your opinion is. Comment, you're welcome to comment on this video, comment on that video, and well, it's just like the O Capablanca song. It's like sort of in James Bond theme style, but you know, maybe that's just me. So feel free to check it out. Now let's check out the game. Carlsen with the white pieces opens with c4. He goes for the English opening with c5, the symmetrical, g3, g6, and bishop to g2. Both Carlsen and Kasimdzhanov fianchetto their kingside bishops with knight to c3 and knight to c6. So everything is symmetrical. Knight to f3 and now e6. With h4 by Carlsen. Carlsen already played this against Wesley So in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire Blitz tournament. And here Wesley went for h6, but here we have knight to f6 by Kasimdzhanov, deviating from that game Carlsen played against Wesley. With d4 by Carlsen, and now c captures on d4. Knight captures on d4, and here Kasimdzhanov castles. With castles by Carlsen, and now comes d5, just expanding in the center, with captures by Carlsen, captures on d5, and now this position has been reached once before in a game Anish Giri versus again Wesley So in the Norway Chess Championship in 2017, where knight captures on c6 was played, but here Carlsen goes for bishop to g5, and it is a new move in the position. So already as of move 11 we have a completely new game. The queen is under attack. You have to decide what to do. Do you want to go queen to c7? Do you want to maybe try and trade queens? A nice in-between move. Knight captures on c3, but Kasimdzhanov goes for queen to a5, just getting the queen out of the way, so the bishop is now not doing all that much here on g5, but at least it's not a target. You don't have any tricks of knight captures on c3 with queen captures on g5, as the h4 pawn nicely protects the bishop here. So knight to b3, attacking Kasimdzhanov's queen, and now it's already getting a bit crowded here. You don't have all that many good squares for the queen, so Kasimdzhanov decides to trade here. We have knight captures on c3, offering a queen trade. Carlsen accepts, knight captures on a5, knight captures on d1 with captures on c6, and now captures on b2, grabbing the pawn. And now before continuing development, first knight to e7 with check. King to h8, and only now rook 8 to c1. So preparing for a nice rook lift, and it's even though black is up a pawn, Carlsen has the bishop pair, and it will be very difficult to keep that pawn. For example, if rook to b8, just trying to hold on to everything. If you move the bishop, you can just capture this pawn. If you play rook to b8, then rook to c7 is coming, and you're never gonna develop anything. You can't move the bishop, you can't move b6 because a7 falls. So there's just no point trying to hold on to the pawn. Kasimdzhanov continues development, the bishop to d7. He decides to give up the b7 pawn, and Carlsen grabs it back with bishop captures on b7, and now rook 8 to b8. Pushing Carlsen's bishop back, but first rook to c7, a nice rook lift, and only then will you move back with the bishop. Bishop to b5, going after the e2 pawn, and now Carlsen retreats with the defense of the e2 pawn. Bishop to f3. With a6 now, not allowing the a7 pawn to remain a target, and now rook f to c1. nicely controlling the c file now, and it's black to move. Kasimdzhanov plays h6, kicks away the bishop from g5, also creates some more breathing room for the king with bishop back to e3, and now comes rook b to d8, grabbing hold of the open d file. Sorry, not the f rook, b to d8, grabbing hold of the open d file. King g2 by Carlsen, improving the position of the king, and black does the same, king to h7. And now knight to c6 by Carlsen, attacking the rook and remaneuvering over to a7. With rook back to c8, offering a trade now, as the rooks are, well, now not connected. With knight to a7, trade with rook captures, and now comes king back to g8. You kind of can't develop this rook anywhere, as it's currently stuck guarding the f7 pawn, so Kasimdzhanov has to waste a move, returning the king to g8. Knight captures on b5 now by Carlsen. We have a captures on b5 and now h5. Trying to create some more weaknesses on the king side. Of course, you don't want to capture and mess up your pawn structure, so Kasimdzhanov pushes g5 and only now rook to b7, going after the b5 pawn. Knight to c4, attacking the bishop, trying to mess up Carlsen's pawn structure here and grab, destroy his bishop pair, but bishop to c5, not allowing this trade to happen, and also the rook on f8 is now under attack. We have rook to a8, and this is basically the critical moment of the game, well, the critical position of the game. So I would ask you to pause the video here and try to find the best move for white, but it's a really tricky idea. It's not just like I want you to pause the video and, keep it paused for a few seconds, even a minute. This is the position you want to pause, when you have like after a family dinner, for the entire family to enjoy, maybe over some mint tea or something, and just discuss everything. This is just a very rich position. So if any of you actually did this, congratulations, as you have a very nice family. But for those of you who maybe did it alone, I also congratulate you. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the best move in the position here is rook captures on b5. So this is one of those positions where the best move is just grabbing a pawn. The point is, Carlsen played bishop to e4 here. He wants to control the h7 square before doing rook captures on b5 or something, because if the bishop is on e4, then black will not be able to capture here due to rook to b8 check. So you will be forced to block with the bishop and then lose the game. But in this position here, as we will now present, rook captures on b5 is the best move. It just grabs a pawn, which is a very important pawn, and white now has a passed a pawn. The problem is you cannot capture the a pawn. After rook captures on a2, you have so many complications. Rook to b8 check, king to h7, and now not bishop to e4, because bishop to e4 can be blocked with f5. First rook to b7, going after the f7 pawn. Now you play king to g8, going back, and only now here in this position you go bishop to e4, and this is just now a critical position where you have to see what can you play. Point is, f5 f5 doesn't work here, but it's impossible to see this from that position, because here you go bishop to d3, you attack the knight here, knight moves to e5, as you don't want to give up the knight for nothing, and now rook captures on g7. This is what the secrets of the position are. King captures on g7, and now bishop to d4, pinning the knight. King f6 and f4 wins the knight, and now you have two bishops for a rook. For example, captures. Next move, you lose this guy here, and the bishop pair will be, of course, much stronger than the rook. So the point is, after bishop to e4, f5 doesn't work. This is the important thing to find, and I do hope you find it, after your family dinner. So you have to play bishop to e5, not allowing rook to b8 check, but then white just plays rook to d7, and now there's no stopping rook to d8, because you don't have rook back to a8. The bishop also covers the a8 square along with the h7 square, and you can't really allow this rook d8 check followed by bishop to f8 check. So here you have to play something. Rook captures on a2, you go after the bishop, but now you get bishop to d3. Also very unfortunate. Rook to d2, and now bishop to b4, and now the rook has nowhere to go. Point is, if you go back rook to d1, bishop to h7 check wins the rook on d1. So you will have to bail out with knight to e3 check, and after king to f3, just rook captures on d3. There's nothing better, so here white wins the exchange. Black is up a pawn, but white keeps the exchange and has some nice chances here. So this is what this position holds. It's a very poisonous position, so to say. So one of those positions where just rook captures on b5 is the best move, but Carlsen wanted to improve with bishop to e4. Now, of course, you cannot go back with the rook, but now Kasimdzhanov takes this opportunity. As Carlsen wasted a move, he has time to improve. Bishop to e5. Now the bishop already guards the e5 square, and now it's a bit different. Now you don't really gain anything by rook captures on b5 because rook captures on a2, and now you don't really have a move anymore. Rook b8 is impossible, so you would have to waste more moves to prepare it. The bishop is here. You have to play some like rook here to here to here, and you don't have all that many moves. So here Carlsen continued bishop to b1 to guard the a2 pawn, and now bishop to d6. Kasimdzhanov wants to trade, and he doesn't want Carlsen to keep his bishop pair. Carlsen, of course, is not interested. Bishop to a7, blocking the rook's influence on the a file. And now Kasimdzhanov also retreats. Bishop to f8. And now Carlsen plays f4. F4, a nice expansion, trying to get rid of black's control of the d5 square, which will prove very handy in the future, as you'll see. We have g captures on f4, g captures on f4, and now knight to a5 by black. And here rook back to d7, just getting the rook out of harm's way. Knight to c6 now with a double attack on the bishop, and the bishop back to f2. For the moment, the a2 pawn is nicely protected by the bishop on b1. Here, knight back to b4 with a double attack on the pawn here, and this is what Carlsen had in mind, and now he plays this very interesting pawn sacrifice f5. So black can't really afford to ignore this, so Kasimdzhanov decides to capture this. We have pawn captures on f5, now doubling black's pawns here, and now you no longer have the e6 pawn to control the d5 square. Only now Carlsen retreats, and now the knight doesn't have the d5 square, so the knight, unless it wants to go all the way back to c6, is currently stuck there. Here the situation on the clock is 10 minutes, both of them. With bishop to e7, this is move 38, so 2 more moves need to be made before reaching time control. And here after bishop to e7, Kasimdzhanov was down to some 5 minutes. Carlsen still had 10 minutes on the clock. Bishop to e1, now creating some tactics here as the knight is under attack, but Kasimdzhanov just shows that there are no good discoveries here and pushes f4. And now there is one more move to be made to reach move 40, and Carlsen really should make the most complicated move, so Kasimdzhanov would have to waste as much time as possible, as he's under a minute. So what do you do here? Carlsen went rook to d7. He created an attack against the bishop on e7, but Kasimdzhanov very quickly played bishop to f8. And now both of them reach time control. Additional time was granted to their clocks. And okay, king to f1 by Carlsen, and here Kasimdzhanov really started to think. He spent some 17 minutes in this position, and it was not an easy position. He's up a pawn, but Carlsen still has the bishop pair. Okay, for the moment it's an inactive bishop pair, but still, they control a lot of squares here. So not really, although they are on the first rank, they are covering a lot of squares. And a very active rook on d7. So you have to play the precise moves. You cannot capture the pawn right away. If you capture it, then the problem is bishop to e4. You get this maneuver while attacking the rook. Rook to c8, and now bishop to d5 with an attack on the knight and the f7 square. This would be bad for black, but Kasimdzhanov goes bishop to c5 instead. So after those 17 minutes, Carlsen continues now rook to b7, goes after the b5 pawn, but now the pawn can be captured. Just knight captures on a2. This is what Kasimdzhanov plays, as bishop to d5 no longer comes with an attack on the rook, so there's no point in playing it. We have rook captures on b5 by Carlsen, attacking the bishop, and now bishop to d4. We have rook to b3, keeping control of the c3 square, both with the bishop and the rook, and not allowing this knight to join the game. King to g7, Kasimdzhanov improves the position of the king, and now rook to d3, pushing the bishop back while still keeping an eye on the c3 square. Bishop to f6, and now bishop to d2. attacking the f4 pawn, and now rook to a4. Kasimdzhanov defends it, and now rook back to d7. Just increasing the activity of the rook, as black still has to figure out how to get how to activate his pieces on the queen side. With king back to g8, not allowing the king to be on the same file as the rook, and now rook back to c7, again with the double control on the c3 square. We have rook to d4 by Kasimdzhanov, and now Carlsen really has to make a decision here. This bishop is doing a really nice job keeping this knight and bay, and if you do something silly, well, you'll just lose the knight. So here Kasimdzhanov says, okay, we can trade, or you can play something like king e1, try and keep an eye on this bishop, but then I have bishop to h4 check. King to d1, and then now just knight to b4. You cannot even trade here, as there's a pin on the d file here. So Carlsen isn't interested in this, but there also is bishop to d3, which keeps the game going, as it avoids trades. For example, now if knight b4, yes, the knight is activated, but you just go bishop to c3 and you lose the game as black. You cannot keep an eye on both the knight, the rook, and if the rook even had a place to move, also the bishop on f6. So this would be, of course, winning for white. So bishop to d3 is a very interesting move for white, but Carlsen instead went for bishop captures on a2. He decided to trade a pair of bishops with rook captures on d2, and now bishop captures on f7 with check. King to f8, and now bishop back to c4, just retreating with the bishop. Now the rook can also move, doesn't have to keep an eye on it. Bishop back to g5, and now we have king to f2. So here we have an endgame. The material on the board is equal, and the bishops are of opposite colors. Rook to c2 by Kasimdzhanov, and now king to f3. We have rook to c3, check, king to e4 by Carlsen, marching the king up the board. And here Kasimdzhanov just played f3, where Carlsen captured, and it was in this position on move 55. That the players agreed to a draw. Why did they agree to a draw? Well, Kasimdzhanov can just play rook e3 check. You cannot go here to keep an eye on your pawn. You have to move back. Now rook captures with check. King e6 or g6 doesn't matter. And even though it seems like black could be in trouble, not really. You are never getting rid of this pawn. The dark square bishop just defends it, so the light square bishop can't really help. The rook, you're not going to be giving your rook for that pawn. Or the bishop, and well, with the two very active pieces, Kasimdzhanov can always just push the white king back, and there are no mate threats here. So this is a completely drawn endgame. But yeah, after e captures on f3, they agreed to a draw. So a really tough game, an excellent game by both of them. And other than that moment where Carlsen had the option of going for that, well, insane engine line that I believe no human can even spot, even if he had all the time in the world. But yeah, just to show you how difficult endgames are, how important it is to study endgames, and just how rich the the entire endgame area is. So sometimes someone will tell you endgames are boring. I don't feel like studying endgames. This is what an endgame can hold and try to deceive you that no, there's nothing there. So yeah, really complicated game. I enjoyed it. I do hope you enjoyed it as well. And I know it seems like we're showing only one game per day, and for the moment we've shown 3 Carlsen games, and there are so many other games being played. But I didn't have all that much time. I only got back from Zagreb like an hour ago, so I decided to show this one, as I know you guys always want to check out Carlsen's games. But tomorrow I have a bit more time, so I will try to do maybe even 3 to 4 videos. We'll see. So keep on suggesting, as I always enjoy your hashtag suggestions, and well, they always give me some good ideas on what to show. So that being said, do check out the Tactical by Huga. I really enjoyed both the music and the video. It's really well done. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. I would like to thank Polak Shlomo, Bernd Veit Rita, Benjamin Bogwald, Grammy Sims, and Simon Johansson for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Isle of Man chess tournament, checking up on your suggestions and whatever else happens in the world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.